The most striking architecture in Egypt, as recorded by ancient writers, has nothing to do with pyramids. Forgotten by time and historians alike, this structure lies in Hawara. According to multiple sources across the centuries, its magnificence dwarfs even the great pyramids of the mighty pharaohs. The deserts of Egypt are littered with ruins, fragments of temples, and pyramids that have stood for thousands of years. But hidden within this landscape is a mystery almost no one talks about. It is not a pyramid, and it's not a tomb. It is something even more astonishing. Ancient writers swore it was the greatest building ever constructed by the Egyptians, and yet today it is missing from history, absent from the tourist trails, and rarely discussed in textbooks. This was the legendary Labyrinth of Hawara, described as an immense underground city of stone chambers, courtyards, and passageways so vast it left the pyramids themselves in its shadow. If it truly existed, it would rewrite what we think we know about ancient Egypt. The fact that modern excavations at the site remain stalled has led many to wonder whether there is more being concealed than revealed, and whether the labyrinth holds secrets that Egypt's guardians are not yet ready to share. The earliest and most vivid account comes from Herodotus, the Greek historian who traveled to Egypt in the 5th century BC. He claimed to have walked through part of the labyrinth himself, guided by priests who showed him its wonders. He wrote that the structure contained 12 courts, 6 facing north, 6 facing south, and more than 3,000 rooms in total, half of them underground, half above ground. The rooms were connected by winding passages that confused and disoriented visitors, making it impossible to find one's way without a guide. The ceilings and walls, Herodotus said, were covered with carvings, inscriptions, and reliefs depicting the long history of Egypt. He compared the building to the pyramids and concluded that the labyrinth surpassed them in scale and magnificence. That testimony has haunted historians for over 2,000 years. Was Herodotus exaggerating, or was he faithfully recording what he had seen with his own eyes? Herodotus was not alone. Centuries later, other ancient authors repeated and confirmed the story. Diodorus Siculus, writing in the 1st century BC, described the labyrinth as a structure built by 12 kings who reigned in succession, each contributing a part of the vast complex. He emphasized its use as both a royal tomb and a ceremonial gathering place for Egypt's priests, suggesting it had both political and religious functions. Strabo, the geographer, also wrote of the labyrinth. He placed it near Lake Moeris in the Fayum region and claimed it contained a great number of halls and courts connected by intricate corridors. He, too, emphasized that it rivaled any wonder in the world. Pliny the Elder, the Roman naturalist, later included it in his encyclopedic works, adding to the weight of testimony. These were not fringe chroniclers inventing myths. These were some of the most respected recorders of the ancient world, each reinforcing the idea that the labyrinth was real, massive, and awe-inspiring. If such a structure existed, the question becomes obvious. Where is it now? If Herodotus and Strabo were not inventing fables, then the labyrinth must have stood in stone, visible to many eyes. And yet, when modern travelers arrive at Hawara, they see little more than the ruined mud-brick pyramid of Amenemhat III, surrounded by scattered stone fragments and sand. No towering colonnades, no endless chambers, no underground archives. How can something described as greater than the pyramids vanish so completely? Part of the answer lies in the centuries of plundering that Egypt's monuments have endured. Limestone and sandstone blocks from older structures were often quarried and recycled into new buildings by later dynasties and even by medieval communities. The labyrinth, if built of fine stone, may have been stripped bare to feed the needs of other projects. Over time, the visible remains dwindled until only the foundations remained. This is where Flinders Petrie enters the story. Petrie, one of the pioneers of modern Egyptology, excavated at Hawara in the late 19th century. He documented the ruins near the pyramid and discovered massive stone blocks and column bases that he believed were remnants of the labyrinth. His sketches and maps suggest that an enormous complex once spread across the site, though most of it was already destroyed. Petrie concluded that Herodotus had seen the structure before it was dismantled and that only the ghost of it survived by his time. But even Petrie admitted that the underground portions may still lie buried beneath the sand and waterlogged soil of the Fayum. That is where modern technology enters the picture. In the early 2000s, a Belgian-Egyptian team conducted ground-penetrating radar surveys at Hawara. Their results were startling. They detected subsurface anomalies, massive rectangular patterns, walls, and chambers deep below the surface. The scans appeared to confirm that beneath the sands lay a sprawling network of stone structures consistent with ancient descriptions of the labyrinth. But those results were never followed by full excavations. Access to the site became restricted, the findings were quietly filed away, and the labyrinth remained hidden. To archaeologists cautious about making bold claims, the radar results were interesting but inconclusive. To fringe theorists, they were smoking gun evidence of a cover-up. And here we encounter the name of Zahi Hawass. Hawass, the former Minister of Antiquities, is without question one of the most recognizable figures in Egyptology. His work brought unprecedented attention to Egypt's heritage. His charisma and energy turned archaeology into a spectacle watched around the world. For that, he deserves immense admiration. Yet, as with any figure who stands guard over national treasures, his role has also invited suspicion. Critics argue that Hawass has been selective in what discoveries are publicized, and that he has exercised tight control over foreign research teams. In the case of Hawara, some whisper that Hawass knows more than he reveals, that he may have suppressed further investigation of the labyrinth to protect narratives that keep Egypt's history tidy and manageable. To be fair, there is no definitive evidence of this. It is entirely possible that Hawass's explanations are correct. The site is too flooded, too fragile, too difficult to excavate. But for those inclined to distrust authority, the silence feels heavy, and the absence of progress looks like deliberate concealment. What then could be hidden in the labyrinth that might spark such suspicion? Here the theories multiply. Some suggest it was nothing more than a grand ceremonial complex, an architectural marvel whose underground portions were filled with symbolic chambers, not secret records. Others believe it contained archives, inscriptions, papyri, or carvings detailing dynasties, astronomical cycles, or religious rituals long since lost. Fringe researchers push further still. They argue that the labyrinth was the legendary Hall of Records, the mythical library said to contain knowledge from a lost civilization predating Egypt. In this interpretation, the priests preserved not only Egyptian history, but the memory of an earlier, more advanced society, perhaps even Atlantis. To most mainstream scholars, these ideas are speculative at best, fantastical at worst. But to those seeking connections between civilizations, the labyrinth stands as a tantalizing possibility, the vault where humanity's missing past was stored. When one considers the descriptions of Herodotus, it is difficult not to imagine such a vault. He wrote of inscriptions covering the walls, of histories carved into stone. What histories were those? If they survive, they could reshape our timeline. Did the Egyptians record the rise and fall of forgotten dynasties? Did they preserve star charts predating the conventional calendar? Did they inscribe records of floods, cataclysms, or visitors from distant lands? Without excavation, we cannot know. And that uncertainty is the heart of the mystery. The Labyrinth of Hawara was not some minor side structure. It was repeatedly described as the pinnacle of Egyptian achievement, yet it has been almost erased from modern awareness. Ask the average person about Egyptian wonders, and they will list the pyramids, the Sphinx, the Valley of the Kings. Few, if any, will mention the labyrinth. Why? Some will say it is simply obscurity, that without visible ruins it cannot capture the public's imagination. Others suspect something deeper, that Egypt, or at least its gatekeepers, prefer it this way. That the labyrinth, if investigated fully, might reveal a story incompatible with the standard narrative of Egypt's past. The tension between mainstream archaeology and fringe speculation often centers on figures like Hawass. On one hand, he is celebrated for his tireless work preserving Egypt's treasures. On the other, he is accused by skeptics of burying inconvenient truths. Both views can exist simultaneously. One can admire his dedication while questioning whether his authority has ever been used to steer public understanding. The labyrinth exemplifies this dilemma. Is it ignored because it is too challenging to excavate, or because it is too dangerous to the story we are told? Evidence does exist that something is there. The 2008 survey revealed anomalies. Petrie's maps confirmed a massive footprint. Ancient authors described it in overwhelming detail, and yet no major excavation has brought those elements to light. This gap between evidence and action is fertile ground for suspicion. It allows alternative narratives to flourish, narratives that paint the labyrinth not as a forgotten ruin but as a deliberately concealed archive of forbidden knowledge. If such knowledge exists, what could it contain? One theory suggests advanced engineering secrets, methods of moving massive stones, constructing pyramids, and aligning monuments with astronomical precision. Another points to forgotten sciences, medicinal knowledge, mathematical formulas, even technologies lost to time. More radical theories imagine records of humanity's origins, or even contact with beings not of this earth. While such ideas stretch the imagination, they persist because of the labyrinth's scale and secrecy. People ask, why would a civilization devote such resources to a structure unless its purpose was extraordinary? The answer may be more mundane. It may have been a vast ceremonial complex, a symbol of power, a way to immortalize kings and priests in stone. Yet even a mundane answer would not erase its significance. A structure larger than any temple filled with carvings of Egyptian history would be one of the most valuable archaeological discoveries of all time. And if it lies beneath the sands of Hawara, then the fact that it remains untouched is itself extraordinary. We return then to the question of suppression. Is Egypt simply waiting for better technology, or is it actively preventing discovery? In interviews, Hawass has often dismissed sensational claims about hidden chambers and lost libraries. He insists that archaeology must proceed carefully, based on evidence, not fantasy. This is a fair position. But fringe thinkers point to his dismissals as too quick, too absolute, as though he seeks to protect an official story. His role, they argue, is not just to reveal Egypt's past, but to curate it, deciding which parts the world is allowed to see. Whether one believes this depends largely on how much trust one places in authority and how much one suspects history has been sanitized for public consumption. What is undeniable is that the labyrinth was real to the ancients. Too many witnesses, too much detail, too much consistency for it to be fiction. Its absence today is not proof of its non-existence, but a challenge to investigate further. Until excavations reveal the truth, the labyrinth will remain a paradox. The greatest building of ancient Egypt, described in awe, yet invisible in reality. A wonder greater than the pyramids, but erased from the tourist maps. A monument praised by Herodotus and Strabo, but sidelined in modern textbooks. The silence itself becomes suspicious. Perhaps one day, new excavations will begin at Hawara. Perhaps technology will pierce the flooded ground and reveal chambers preserved beneath. If that day comes, the labyrinth could change everything. It could confirm Herodotus, vindicate Petrie, and silence centuries of doubt. Or it could reveal something far stranger, inscriptions that rewrite the origin of Egypt, artifacts that predate the dynasties, knowledge that alters humanity's understanding of itself. That possibility is what keeps the legend alive, what fuels speculation, and what makes the labyrinth one of the most tantalizing mysteries in archaeology. Until then, the sands keep their secrets. Scholars debate, fringe thinkers speculate, and Egypt guards its heritage. The labyrinth waits, silent and unseen, its halls likely filled with both rubble and revelations. And we are left with the haunting words of Herodotus, who stood in its courts and declared it greater than the pyramids. If he was right, then somewhere beneath Hawara lies the most important discovery of our age. But it wasn't hidden by history. It was hidden by the choices of men.